I said earlier this week that on many of these issues, we need to get in early and be ahead of the pace. It's not alarmism to be talking about vaccine passports. There have been tens of thousands of comments on social media by you about what I had to say last night. Boris Johnson has spoken about vaccine passports as part of his, quote, roadmap out of lockdown. Although he doesn't want to use those words, he chooses COVID status certification. Now, if your messages to me are an indication Australians won't wear this, Vicky from the Gold Coast says, no vaccine passports ever. Thank you, Alan, for standing up to freedom. Harry from Melbourne says, if we allow these vaccine passports, we are opening the doors to losing the little freedom we still hold. This cannot happen. We need to stand strong. Well, Dr. Rocco Loiacono has written splendidly about this in last week's Spectator Australia. We've got to be ahead of the game here. Big Brother has taken charge of our lives for too long. My view is, if this is even contemplated by either of the major political parties, they're gone. Dr. Loiacono joins me from Perth. Dr. Loiacono, thank you for your time. Can I begin by asking, is it true that you've written to several coalition MPs on this matter and you've had neither an acknowledgement nor a reply?
Good evening, Alan, and good evening to all your viewers. Yes, I have written to several coalition MPs, but I have to make a slight correction. I've actually received one acknowledgement, not a response. But I think what this, and it's possibly because it might be, this proposal might be under consideration.
Absolutely.
But, irrespective of that, what we're seeing in the UK and in Europe is a serious cause for concern, in particular if we want to preserve our fundamental freedoms and also if we want to be able to enjoy our freedoms as well as our social interaction, because this will seriously impact on our ability to socially interact as human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting though, isn't it, Doctor, that 72 MPs in Britain have signed this pledge against vaccine passports, including the Labor leader, Sir Keir Starmer, who said that vaccine passports are against British instinct. I mean, it's more than that. I would have thought they'd be a legal minefield. But I note that Sir Graham Brady, who's the chairman of the powerful 1922 Committee of Tory backbenchers, rightly said COVID status certification would be divisive and discriminatory, and said we should be aiming to return to normal life, not to put permanent restrictions in place. Now, the trouble, Dr. Loiacono, with government is they say listen to the experts, but they don't listen if it doesn't suit, do they?
Well, yes, and Boris Johnson, I think, is in a serious contradiction here, because he is on record in the past as opposing ID cards, saying that they would lead to a papers, please society. Well, that's pretty much exactly what he's proposing to do with these COVID certification certificates, where one would have to prove that he or she has either had the jab or had a negative test result in order to go to the football or go to the pub or go to a restaurant. Sir Graham Brady mentioned that they would be discriminatory because he was talking in the context that a large number of the vulnerable in the UK had been vaccinated, and this would be particularly discriminatory, as other commentators have pointed out, against the young, because they're the ones who are last in the queue. They're the ones who have been locked up through lockdowns and being forced to stay at home in order to protect the vulnerable. Yet they're the ones who have many studies have shown that have suffered not only the economic impacts of the lockdowns but also the mental impacts of the lockdowns.
Right. But also the figures.
They're the ones who'd be paying the price.
But the figures. I mean, the fatality rate for people under 70 is less than 0.1%. How can you bar someone from going to work or entering a restaurant because they haven't been vaccinated? I mean, what about those who mightn't be able to be vaccinated for medical reasons? I mean, this is a legal minefield, isn't it? Just because alarmism has created the impression that this virus is far worse than it is.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, I've written elsewhere that we're in a situation similar to Thomas Hobbes Leviathan. He wrote a treatise, Leviathan, in 1651, where he said that he argued for an all-powerful sovereign who would have the power to, among other things, decide what opinions and doctrines are averse. Well, we only have to look at all the task forces that have been established to weed out this COVID misinformation. And anyone who tries to point out some of these arguments that and some of the limitations of this vaccine, just immediately labelled as anti-vaxxers. Well, that's not the case. I mean, the World Health, Dr. Leviathan from the World Health Organization has in fact declared that there's no evidence that they have that the vaccine will either prevent one from getting COVID-19 or that will prevent them from transmitting it to others. And in terms of medical exemptions, the British Medical Journal pointed out in its editorial recently that there are several people who would potentially suffer allergies and severe reactions from the vaccine, so it's not recommended for them. And it's also not recommended, as I understand it, for pregnant women because they would also be in a severe risk, a high risk category. But as the British Medical Journal pointed out, they weren't even the pregnant women were not included in clinical trials. So naturally, they would be hesitant and worried about the effects of vaccination on them. Yet, if this policy were implemented, they would not have access to a vaccine passport and wouldn't be able to enjoy the freedoms that those who are vaccinated would be able to do. So it's creating, in effect, some kind of two-tier society or a societal apartheid, as one commentator put it.
That's absolutely right. Look, it's good to talk to you. I mean, this is not going to go away, because at the end of the day, there are any number of world authorities who say that this should not be mandatory. So we don't want, we've got to set our face early. As I said to you, Doctor, get in early. Good to talk to you, by the way, Dr. Rocco. It's an exotic name, by the way. I'm Alan Jones. You're Dr. Rocco Loiacono. I love it. From the Faculty of Business and Law at the Curtin Law School, Curtin University. Good to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate it.